My dear friends, have you ever noticed something very strange about life? When you are always available, people stop valuing you. When you give too much, they start taking you for granted. And when you are too friendly, suddenly, instead of earning respect, you lose it. Isn't it strange? The very thing we think will bring us love, over-friendliness, sometimes ends up costing us peace, dignity, and even relationships. It's like sugar in tea. A little sugar makes it sweet, but if you pour too much, it becomes undrinkable. Friendliness is the same. A little friendliness builds connection, but too much can drown you in misunderstandings, manipulations, and disrespect. So today, let's reflect together on why it is important to stop being too friendly and how we can strike a balance between kindness and boundaries. Respect is greater than over-friendliness, and this is a truth that life teaches us repeatedly, yet many of us ignore it until we experience the pain of being taken for granted. You see, in our effort to be liked, accepted, and appreciated, we often cross the line of healthy friendliness and step into the dangerous zone of over-friendliness. And while at first it might look like people enjoy our presence, slowly we realize they may not truly value us. What they feel is not admiration, it is convenience. Because when you are always available, when you are always agreeable, when you are always smiling at every request, people stop seeing your worth. Respect, my dear friend, is not born out of over-accommodation, it is born out of balance. Think about it this way: when you go to a shop and see diamonds, they are kept behind a glass case, handled carefully, and sold only with trust and caution. On the other hand, when you see candies, they are scattered in bowls at the counter, free for anyone to pick. Which one do people respect more? Which one holds more value? Of course, the diamond. Why? Because it is not easily accessible. Its worth demands boundaries. This is exactly how human relationships work. If you give yourself away too cheaply, too openly, too excessively, people may enjoy the sweetness for a while, but they won't recognize the depth of your value. In daily life, this plays out in very small, almost unnoticeable ways. Imagine you have a colleague at work. Every time they ask you for help, you say yes, even when you're already buried under your own workload. At first, they might thank you. The second time, they'll expect you. By the fifth or sixth time, they'll assume it's your duty. And one day, when you're unable to help, instead of gratitude, you'll face annoyance. Why? Because what was once seen as kindness is now treated as obligation. Over-friendliness slowly erodes respect and replaces it with expectation. The same happens in relationships. If you are constantly chasing, constantly messaging, constantly calling, constantly trying to please, the other person may not admire your dedication. Instead, they may begin to feel suffocated, or worse, they may begin to think, this person has nothing else important in life. The tragedy is, you may be doing all this out of love, but the perception from the other side is very different. Respect in relationships is created by showing that while you care deeply, you also value yourself enough not to be stepped on. Think of a mother raising her children. A good mother loves her children unconditionally, but she also sets boundaries. She teaches them discipline, says no when necessary, and holds them accountable. That's why, as they grow older, children respect her. On the other hand, if a parent gives in to every demand, never says no, and tries to stay over-friendly, the children might enjoy it at first, but will not take them seriously. They won't see strength, they'll only see softness. Respect comes not from giving endlessly, but from giving wisely. Even in friendships, this truth plays out. Have you ever noticed how the friend who is always available, always adjusting, always sacrificing, is often the one most overlooked. Yet the friend who knows how to say no, who has self-respect, who doesn't overextend, is the one people admire. Why? Because respect is born from balance. People are drawn not to those who bend endlessly, but to those who stand firmly while still being kind. Let's reflect on this. Being friendly is beautiful. It opens hearts, builds trust, and creates joy. But being too friendly can make you invisible. It's like salt in food. Without salt, the food is tasteless. With the right amount, it's delicious. But too much salt ruins the dish completely. Your friendliness is the same. Keep it balanced, and it will make your personality shine. Overdo it, and people will no longer appreciate your presence. So, the lesson here is not to stop being kind. The world needs kindness, love, and care, but it needs it with wisdom. Respect is the crown you must wear, and over-friendliness often makes that crown fall. You are not meant to be a doormat. You are meant to be a doorway through which people walk into the light of inspiration, kindness, and strength. But if you allow everyone to trample on you in the name of friendliness, you'll soon lose yourself. Therefore, let us remember this: respect lasts longer than temporary approval. People might forget the hundreds of favors you did for them, but they will always remember the dignity with which you carried yourself. And in the end, it is not the number of friends or acquaintances that defines your life. It is the quality of the respect you hold in their hearts. Be friendly, yes. Smile, yes. Help, yes. But don't lose your self-worth in the process. For diamonds don't shine because they are everywhere. They shine because they are rare, respected, and valued. And so should you. Not everyone you meet in life will carry pure intentions for you. And this is one of the most important realizations we must embrace if we want to protect our peace and our dignity. Many times, we believe that because our own heart is sincere, others will be equally genuine. But life teaches us, often painfully, that not everyone is guided by the same values. Some people approach you with kindness, while others approach you with calculation. Some want to share love, while others only want to use your energy, your time, or your resources. And if you cannot discern this difference, you risk becoming an easy target for manipulation. Think about a simple example from nature. A flower blooms in a garden. Bees approach it to gather nectar, and in the process, they help pollinate the flower, ensuring its growth. But not all visitors to the flower are bees. There are also insects that come to eat the petals, to damage the beauty of the flower. The flower, however, cannot immediately distinguish between who is there to help and who is there to harm. This is how life works with people. Some will come into your life like the bees, helping you, uplifting you, giving you strength. Others will come like the insects, taking from you, leaving you weaker than before. If you do not learn to recognize the difference, you will open yourself up to unnecessary pain. In our daily lives, this plays out in small but significant ways. Imagine you have a colleague who always comes to you smiling, always seeking your advice, always leaning on your support. At first, you feel happy to be there for them, but over time, you realize that they never stand with you when you need them. They disappear when you require help. Their smile was never about genuine connection. It was a mask to ensure their needs were met. This realization hurts, but it is crucial, because the sooner you see that not every smile is honest, the more you protect yourself from being drained. Even in personal relationships, this truth is essential. Sometimes, you love someone so deeply that you assume their heart mirrors yours. You give time, effort, sacrifices, and you expect the same in return. But sadly, some people are not looking for mutual respect. They are looking for convenience. They stay close not because of genuine affection, but because they benefit from your presence. It could be emotional support, financial help, or even just the comfort of knowing someone is always available for them. The tragedy is that the moment you stop giving, their interest fades. This is where we realize not everyone has the right intention. One of the deepest reasons why so many of us get hurt in relationships or friendships is because we assume that everyone will treat us with the same respect and dignity that we give them. But the truth is, not everyone values boundaries. And when you live life without drawing healthy boundaries, you unintentionally give people the permission to cross lines that should never be crossed. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are guidelines to show people how you deserve to be treated. They are not about being selfish, they are about being self-respecting. Think about a simple example: your house. When you live in your home, you don't keep the front door open for anyone to walk in at any time. You lock the door, not because you hate the people outside, but because you love the people inside. You don't allow just anyone to sit at your dining table or sleep in your bedroom. There are rules, there are spaces, there are limits. Now imagine if you left your doors open and said, "I am friendly, I am kind, let anyone come in." Very soon, your home would not feel safe anymore. Strangers could misuse it, and you would be left wondering why your peace has been stolen. Relationships work exactly the same way. When we do not create boundaries, we let people walk into our inner world with no restrictions, and some will not respect it. Daily life gives us endless examples of this. Maybe you've had a friend who constantly calls you at odd hours, expecting you to solve their problems. The first few times you are glad to help, but over time you realize this is not friendship, it is dependency. They never ask how you're doing, they never consider your schedule, they just want you to be available. If you keep saying yes, out of fear that they'll be upset, you are sacrificing your own mental peace. By not setting a boundary, you are silently teaching them that your time, your rest, your emotions are secondary. And the longer this continues, the more drained you become. Another example, imagine at your workplace. Your manager keeps piling responsibilities on you because you never say no. You think you are being loyal, hardworking, and supportive. But soon you find yourself staying late every night, sacrificing your health, missing out on family time, and carrying unnecessary stress. Instead of appreciating you, they start taking you for granted, expecting more and more. Why? Because you did not set a boundary. And remember this, when you don't respect your own limits, others won't respect them either. Boundaries also apply in personal relationships. Sometimes people use love as an excuse to control. They might say, "If you really cared about me, you'd do this for me." And because you don't want to lose them, you give in again and again. Slowly, your individuality fades away. You start living according to their expectations, not your own values. But love without respect is not love, it's control. And the lack of boundaries is what fuels that control. Setting a boundary is not about pushing someone away. It is about teaching them how to stand with you in a healthy, respectful way. Even parents set boundaries with children. When a child wants to eat 10 chocolates in a row, a loving parent says no. Is it because the parent doesn't love the child? No, it's because they do love the child and they want to protect their health. Boundaries, in essence, are an act of love for yourself and for others. They are reminders that respect must exist in both directions. Now, some people misunderstand boundaries as being rude or arrogant. But boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about filtering what comes in. Just like a water filter doesn't reject water, It simply removes the impurities. Boundaries don't reject people, they reject the behaviors that harm you. When you say, I am not available to talk after 10 p.m., or I cannot help with this right now, or I am not comfortable with this kind of behavior, you are not rejecting the person. You are simply protecting your own balance. And this is not selfishness, it is self-preservation. Without boundaries, resentment builds up. Think of the times when you said yes when your heart was screaming no. You did the favor, but deep inside, you felt irritated, disrespected, or unappreciated. Over time, this resentment turns into anger, bitterness, or even the end of the relationship. Ironically, by trying to avoid hurting others with boundaries, you end up hurting yourself more. And eventually, the relationship suffers anyway. But when you communicate your boundaries clearly, you give people the chance to adjust, to respect, and to build a healthier bond with you. One of the hardest truths in life to accept is this: not everyone deserves a seat at your table. We live in a world where we often mistake friendliness for obligation. We feel that if we are approachable, if we are kind, then we must give everyone access to our time, our energy, and even our hearts. But this is one of the greatest traps that silently drains us. The reality is, not every person who comes into your life deserves to stay. Not everyone is meant to carry the privilege of your trust, your secrets, or your love. Being friendly to all is a virtue, but letting everyone too close is a weakness. Think about the process of inviting someone into your home. You may greet a delivery man with a smile, you may thank him for his service, but you don't invite him into your kitchen or bedroom. Why? Because there is a difference between politeness and intimacy. You treat him kindly, but you understand the boundary. In the same way, in life, you can be warm, gentle, and respectful to everyone you meet. But that doesn't mean they all deserve a place in your inner circle. Allowing the wrong people into your close space is like leaving the doors and windows of your house open in the middle of the night. It makes you vulnerable to harm, even if your intention was only to be kind. Daily life gives us painful examples of this. Imagine a young woman who has a naturally helpful and caring nature. Whenever anyone in her workplace needs help, she is the first to volunteer. Soon, people begin to depend on her, not because they cannot manage, but because they know she won't refuse. Slowly, she realizes that instead of being appreciated, she's being used. The very quality that should have been her strength, her kindness, has turned into a burden. Why? Because she gave access to people who only came to take, not to give. Or think of someone who shares every secret, every weakness with anyone who seems friendly. At first, they feel lighter thinking, this person really listens to me. But over time, they notice those same secrets being whispered in corners, twisted in gossip, and used against them. What was the mistake? Not that they trusted, but that they trusted too soon, too much, and without discernment. Trust is sacred, and not everyone deserves it. It's important to realize that not every smiling face is a true friend. Some people approach you because of what you can give them, not because of who you are. Some people stay close not to support you, but to satisfy their curiosity. They want to know your life, not to protect it, but to use it. This is why we must learn to differentiate between acquaintances and true companions. Just because someone laughs with you doesn't mean they will cry with you. Just because someone praises you doesn't mean they respect you. In friendships and relationships, access must be earned, not given freely. Just as a gardener protects the most delicate flowers with care, you must protect your heart. A gardener doesn't let weeds grow freely among roses because weeds will choke them. Similarly, If you allow everyone into your most vulnerable spaces, some will inevitably suffocate your peace, your confidence, and even your happiness. Sometimes we feel guilty about this. We think, if I don't open up, if I don't let them close, maybe I am being rude, maybe I am being arrogant. But there is nothing arrogant about protecting your inner world. In fact, it is wisdom. Just as you wouldn't let a stranger borrow your bank card, you should not let just anyone hold your emotional investments. The currency of your time, your love, your energy is far more precious than money, and not everyone can handle it with care. We also need to recognize patterns. If someone repeatedly disrespects your values, ignores your boundaries, or drains your energy, they are showing you they don't deserve the seat you've given them. Yet so many of us hold on, thinking, maybe they'll change, maybe I just need to give more. But holding on to people who don't respect you is like holding on to a thorn, expecting it to turn into a rose. The longer you grip it, the more you bleed. A daily life example can make this clear. Suppose you have a friend who only calls when they need something. They never check in just to ask how you are. They never celebrate your victories. But the moment they need a ride, money, or emotional support, your phone lights up with their name. At first you help because that's your nature. But after a while, you realize the friendship is one-sided. And yet, out of fear of being too harsh, you keep saying yes. The result, you are drained, unappreciated, and resentful. The truth is, such a person doesn't deserve that seat at your table. And wisdom is knowing when to stand up and say, no more. Giving access to the wrong people doesn't just hurt you. It delays the arrival of the right people. If your table is filled with those who don't respect you, how will there be room for those who genuinely love you? If your energy is consumed by those who only take, how will you have the energy to invest in those who give back? Sometimes the reason you feel lonely, even when surrounded by people, is because you are surrounded by the wrong ones. So let's understand kindness is for everyone, but closeness is for the few who prove worthy. Be polite to all, but be personal with the ones who have earned your trust. Just like a tree offers shade to all but allows only a few birds to build nests on its branches, you too can be a source of kindness without letting everyone take root in your life. Life becomes lighter, freer, and more peaceful when you realize you don't owe everyone access to you. Not everyone deserves your time. Not everyone deserves your energy. Not everyone deserves your heart. The moment you accept this truth, you will stop feeling guilty for choosing wisely. Protect your circle. Protect your peace. Protect your seat at the table, because it is reserved only for those who truly value you. One of the most powerful lessons we must learn in life is that saying no is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-respect. Too often, we are trained to believe that rejecting someone's request makes us rude, arrogant, or unkind. But in reality, always saying yes is the very reason many people feel overburdened, undervalued, and silently resentful. The ability to say no when needed is a gift you give not only to yourself, but also to the relationships around you. It creates clarity, balance, and most importantly, peace within your heart. Think about your own daily life. How many times have you agreed to do something you didn't want to, just because you were afraid of disappointing someone? Perhaps a colleague asked you to cover their work even though you were already drowning in your own tasks, and you agreed with a forced smile. Perhaps a relative asked you to attend a gathering when all you craved was a moment of rest, but you still went because you didn't want to be seen as selfish. These small acts of forced agreement may look harmless on the surface, but they pile up, and eventually They create a life where your choices are no longer yours. You become a puppet pulled by strings of other people's expectations. Saying no is not about rejecting people. It is about protecting yourself. It is about honoring your energy, your time, and your mental space. Imagine a mobile phone if it is constantly drained because it is plugged into every device around it, sharing its battery endlessly. It will eventually switch off. No matter how much it tries to serve, it cannot because it has nothing left. You are no different. If you keep saying yes to everyone, you will eventually burn out, leaving nothing for yourself or the people who genuinely need your presence. A daily life example makes this very clear. Think of a young mother who is trying to balance her work, her children, her household, and her social commitments. Her neighbors ask her to join a community event, her friends want her to hang out, her colleagues want her to take on extra tasks, and her family demands more attention. Out of love, guilt, or habit, she keeps saying yes. But inside, she is exhausted. She starts losing patience with her children, feels overwhelmed at work, and even begins to resent the people she once loved serving. The problem is not her love, it is her inability to say no. By denying herself rest, she unintentionally loses the very quality of kindness and joy that made her so valuable in the first place. Saying no is not about shutting doors, it is about opening the right ones. When you say no to distractions, you say yes to focus. When you say no to overcommitments, you say yes to your peace. When you say no to toxic people, you say yes to your growth. Every no that feels uncomfortable in the moment actually creates a greater yes for your future. Many people hesitate because they fear rejection. They think, if I say no, maybe they won't like me anymore. Maybe they'll think I'm rude. But here's a simple truth. If someone walks away from you just because you set a boundary, they were never truly with you in the first place. The people who love and respect you will understand when you say, I cannot do this right now. Those who don't respect it are showing you that they value your compliance more than your well-being. And such people should never be the reason you compromise your peace. Imagine you are walking through a market. Every vendor shouts for your attention, calling you to buy their goods. Do you buy from every stall? No. You choose what you need, what benefits you, and what fits your budget. Similarly, in life, requests and demands will come at you from all directions. If you try to respond to all of them, you will lose yourself. The wisdom lies in selecting carefully, in deciding which yes truly serves your values and which no protects your energy. Another example is from professional life. Suppose you're working late into the night, completing a project that isn't even yours simply because you didn't know how to refuse a colleague. At first, they may appreciate you, but over time, they begin to take you for granted. What started as one small favor becomes a regular expectation. Soon, you're doing twice the work for half the recognition. And instead of being admired for your helpfulness, you are silently resented for being a pushover. Ironically, when you finally reach a breaking point and refuse, people act shocked, not because you are wrong, but because you trained them to believe your yes was guaranteed. Saying no earlier would have not only protected you, but also taught others to respect you. The truth is, people don't lose respect for you when you say no. They lose respect when you overcommit and fail to deliver, when your yes turns into half-hearted effort, when your energy is so scattered that you can no longer show up fully. A strong no builds more respect than a weak yes. Saying no is also a form of self-love. When you decline an unnecessary invitation, you give yourself rest. When you refuse to take on a burden that isn't yours, you give yourself freedom. When you walk away from relationships that drain you, you give yourself dignity. And self-love is not selfishness. It is the foundation on which you can build love for others. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So, the next time you feel pressure to say yes, pause and ask yourself, does this align with my values? Does this protect my energy? Will this help me grow, or will it drain me? If the answer is no, then have the courage to say it out loud. Remember, every no you say to the wrong thing creates space for the right things to enter. One of the most crucial lessons in life is to understand the value of self-respect. Too often, in our eagerness to be liked, accepted, or appreciated, we bend beyond our limits, forgetting that true dignity lies in respecting ourselves first. Self-respect is not about arrogance, nor is it about thinking you are above others. It is about acknowledging your worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. Without self-respect, you may find yourself living a life constantly dictated by the approval of others, always seeking validation and never feeling whole within. With self-respect, however, you begin to shine with a quiet confidence that no one can take away from you. Think about the countless times people ignore their inner voice just to please others. A young woman may tolerate disrespectful behavior from a friend or partner because she fears losing them, not realizing that by staying silent, she is teaching others how to treat her. A hard-working man may accept unfair treatment at work because he worries about being replaced, not realizing that by compromising his dignity, he is losing far more than a paycheck. These examples reflect the painful truth. When you don't respect yourself, the world mirrors that lack of respect back to you. Self-respect acts like an invisible shield. When you carry it, people sense it. They know where your boundaries are, and they learn to value your presence rather than take advantage of it. Imagine two people in a room, one who constantly seeks approval, nodding to every demand, and another who listens, considers, and firmly speaks up when something doesn't feel right. Whom do you think will be respected more? Not the one who bends endlessly, but the one who stands rooted like a tree, grounded in their values. Daily life gives us many examples. Let's take the workplace again. Suppose your boss or colleague regularly expects you to stay late, not because the work is essential, but because they assume you will never say no. At first, you may think you're being a good employee, but slowly, exhaustion sets in, resentment builds, and your performance suffers. On the other hand, imagine respectfully saying, I am happy to contribute when there's urgency, but I also need to maintain balance for my health and family. This doesn't show disobedience, it shows self-respect. Over time, people will realize that your boundaries are non-negotiable, and ironically, they will admire you more for it. Self-respect also plays a deep role in personal relationships. Many people confuse love with sacrifice to the point that they lose themselves in the process. A friend constantly takes without giving back. A partner dismisses your feelings, or a family member ignores your efforts. When you allow it silently, thinking that patience equals love, you unknowingly damage your own spirit. True love is never about shrinking yourself. It is about growing together. By setting boundaries and demanding respect, you not only protect yourself, but also teach the other person the meaning of real love, which is rooted in mutual care and value. Self-respect shows itself in the smallest daily choices as well. Consider the way you treat your own body. If you constantly neglect your health, eat recklessly, and deprive yourself of rest, you are showing a lack of respect for yourself. If you allow negative thoughts to dominate your mind, telling yourself you are unworthy, you are disrespecting the incredible gift of life within you. On the other hand, when you take care of your health, when you stand in front of the mirror and affirm your worth, gratitude is one of the most transformative forces in life. It has the power to shift the way we see the world, the way we treat people, and even the way we experience our own struggles. When we cultivate gratitude, we are not just saying, "Thank you" for the good things in our life. We are training our hearts and minds to notice the blessings that often go unnoticed. Gratitude allows us to pause and reflect, to realize that even in the middle of chaos or difficulty, there are still reasons to smile,